what changes should be made in the Christian church to make it so that we are doctrinally correct. Pastor Warren Hunsberger in the house live today on The View.
Let's get it started. Ha! Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Ha! Let's get it started in here. Yeah.
Let's get it started in here.
Welcome to The View from a Pew, a conversation among Christians who are out to grow their faith by asking the simple questions, the tough questions, and the stuff you really wish your pastor would talk about. Come on now, let's reason together. It's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so join the conversation. Call 855-244-0077. That's 855-244-0077. Now, here's your host, J. Michael McCoy.
Good afternoon. It is 4 minutes after the hour. We are live here on The View from a Pew, and I was just on the phone with Barbara Walters. She continues to apologize that they've stolen the name of my show to use on their little Girl Talk program on ABC. And so for those of you that when I say on The View, you think I stole it from Baba, I had this back in 1984. And Barbara Walters was hardly 60 back then, so she could probably not remember it. So we welcome you to The View from a Pew today. I got a great guest today. First of all, I want to introduce Dr. Mike Hartwig, who's sitting in today. King David is producing today, and my guest is Pastor, well, you got a lot of titles. Pastor Warren Hunsberger, who is pastor of the Christian Life Association Church, which is kind of Fleur Drive and the Bypass.
Yeah, Christian Life Assembly.
What did I say?
Association.
Oh, well, that's because I wrote ASS.
It started with ASS, yeah.
Yeah, Assembly. He's also the regional director of Teen Challenge, and he's on the United States of America Teen Challenge Board of Directors. So we're going to have lots to talk about, and that's Assembly. I better write that out because it'll be association every time.
And I'm Gay's husband.
That's probably the most important role. 7?
Yeah.
Really?
3 boys, 4 girls.
Did you hatch them all, or did you adopt some?
No, these are all ours by the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, you earned it.
Yeah.
Well, I think
like a true Catholic.
Gay earned it. Yeah. So, we kind of started out like we were going to talk about the Catholic Church, but we don't need to talk about the Catholic Church. We need to talk about the church.
Right.
There's no reason to single out Catholic because the Lutherans, the Mennonites, the Methodists, the Episcopalians, we're all guilty of doing what? What are we guilty of?
Wow, big question. I think if you talk about needed change, from my perspective, I'm not that bright, and so I need to break things down. And I think we've really done a disservice to our call as a body. I think that Jesus put it so beautifully. He got confronted by, quote unquote, an expert in the law. And this expert in the law that stood up to test him didn't really care what his answer was to the questions. He's just trying to mess with him, trying to trip him up. And 2 different gospel accounts record the question differently. One, the question's recorded as, "Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" The other gospel account, the question's recorded as, "What's the greatest commandment?" And if you put those 2 together, that's pretty important stuff. And the answer that Christ gives is exactly the same, both accounts. He says, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Radical, life-changing love. And he said, you didn't ask me, but I'll throw in the second free. Second only to that is love your neighbor as yourself. And we have fought wars and split churches and committed all kinds of just craziness when we've gotten away from that central call to love. The beautiful part was he tacks on at the end, he says, if you love like that, you'll fulfill all the law and the prophets.
Yeah.
And we're running around like chickens with our heads cut off, trying to fulfill the law and the prophets so God will love us and other people will approve of us.
Where does the Great Commission fit in there? Is that part 3?
I think it would flow out of a love for God, a love for others. If I truly love God, if I have been born again, if I've received Him as Lord, I'm going to want to share that message. Because I love him, I want to honor him, I want to obey him, but there are people all around me that need to know that truth. And that love for them would drive me to share that, not because I need another notch in my gun belt. I've got to share that because I love.
Pastor Warren Hunsberger is our guest today, pastor at Christian Life Assembly, regional director of Teen Challenge, and on the USA board of Teen Challenge. And our question is, what should the church do? How should it change? Do you think that your great-grandparents felt the same about the future as you do for your grandkids and great-grandkids when it comes to the church and its place in our society?
Well, I could answer that a couple different ways. Number one, as I look back, not many folks in my heritage were churched folks.
Okay.
What's your heritage?
Well, the Hunsberger side of that heritage, my grandfather was an alcoholic, lost everything to alcoholism, lost his family, and probably about a dozen years before he passed away from cancer when I was in my early 20s, he met Christ at an AA meeting.
Oh, wow.
Back in the days when they would hold up
Yeah,
Christ
right,
as
right.
the
Yeah,
higher
that's what I'm
power.
thinking.
He meets Jesus, and I got a grandpa because
Sure.
of the change that took place in him. I got a grandpa I'd never known. I mean, alcoholism had taken him
Sure.
from me, never knew him. And the other thing that happened as a result of that change in him was he saw the garbage I was getting into.
Sure.
He was street savvy
Yeah.
and communicated to me that he loved me. Every time I saw him, he told me that he loved me and told me that nothing I'd ever do would change that. And then the
Well,
other
let me-
side of that was he was praying for me.
Well, yeah, that's a showing in and of itself. You mentioned love twice here, and the contents of the thing was that the church needs to change. What does the church need to do to change? And then you come out and you say we need to love each other. If I'm sitting there listening to this, so what are you saying? You saying the church doesn't love each other?
I'm saying we do a lot. We say a
Yeah.
lot that is not motivated by love. Today, one of the greatest disservices I think the church in general does
Right.
to society is that they know us predominantly by what we're against.
Ah.
Because we're standing out on a street corner with a sign.
Right.
We're showing up at a PTA meeting or a school board meeting screaming at people. And if I'm holding that sign or if I'm screaming
Yeah.
because I love God and love
Right.
them, then hey, go at it.
Right. God
Get to it.
God hate facts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just think that instead of people knowing me, knowing the church because of what we're against, they ought to be able to look at us and say, those people love Jesus. That ought to be evident.
Yeah, but how do you know that? I mean, how do you see that?
If you love Jesus,
Yeah.
I see it. And somebody asked me, how do I know that? What do you
Right.
see in Mike? Well,
Right.
I'd say, I'm not sure. But it radiates from him.
Yeah.
It oozes out of every pore.
Yeah.
I don't know how I know, but I know.
Yeah.
I see it.
Pastor
Yeah.
Warren
Love's
Hunsberger
visible.
is our guest today, pastor at Christian Life Assembly and also the regional director for Teen Challenge. Here's the problem with that, as I see it, if I may be so bold. I come from a world of political conversation in which I always wore my faith and values on my sleeve, even though my relationship with Christ has grown to the point now where I'm embarrassed that I ever said I was a representative of Christ in a previous life. I still know that I was that representative for a while. And when you told me that you were okay with abortion and I called you a baby killer, I was immediately accused of not showing God's love.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, our opponents...
Let's ask you today. Do you think then you were showing God's love?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Somebody has to fight for those unborn children.
Then I've got no problem with what you say or how you say it if it's love driving you. Because I think that's another part of the problem. I decide for you how you show love. You're going to try and decide for me
Right.
how I show love. And really what that leads to is judgment.
Yeah.
You know, the term diversity has been perverted in so many different ways, but God designed diversity into his creation. we are so different
Yeah.
in so many different ways, and it's beautiful when it's driven by love. When we use the differences to beat people over the head with those differences, I mean, it gets weird, wild.
If we could get rid of all the atheists. No, now think about this. If we could get rid of all the people that they thought they were the center of the earth, and there is a God and they are it, and we could actually get a God-fearing society, maybe it's Catholic, maybe it's Mormon, maybe it's Episcopal, but if the center of the earth, if we were God worldview, I think we could treat each other with love. But we can't when the guy next door to me only knows that he's got so many days, so many weeks, so many inches, so many minutes on this earth, and he's in control of it. And when he's dead, he goes to dust.
And that's why I think Christ's answer is so powerful. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength.
Neighbor
that's
as
radical.
yourself.
And love your neighbor as yourself. And you cannot love your neighbor like that if you don't love God. And you can't fulfill all the law and the prophets like he tags on that if you're not motivated by love.
I agree with that, but I also can hear my atheist brother saying, no, I need to be good because in the end, it helps me. I don't steal. I don't murder. I follow the laws of the land because it benefits me ultimately in the long run. So he can treat people nicely. He treats my mom nice. He treats everybody in our family well. And in the surface, if you were to compare him and my Christian sister, which one is more loving, they would point to him every single time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there, yeah.
Well, and
yes,
just think about what you just said. That's powerful. That here we have someone, I assume then what you're saying is your sister professes Christ.
Right.
Okay. And you're saying that your brother lives more loving than your
Right,
sister
exactly.
who professes Christ. And that's what I'm saying is wrong with the church.
That they
That's
don't,
what I'm saying is wrong with the church.
Well,
Because
and that's why I go back to that other question. Well, how do I know? You're saying, well, the church, in essence, this is what I heard you saying. And please forgive me if this comes across crass, but it says, the church just needs to love more.
don't apologize for that. You've found me
Okay,
guilty.
let me
I'm
see.
saying that.
Let me see. I'm going to pick on you now. Okay. So
do it.
Let's take a look at your church. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice church building. Let's say, I don't know what it's worth, but let's say it's worth $2 million. Okay. Let's assume that, whether it is or not.
Let's hope that it's worth at least that because we owe that much.
Good. Now, you think about how much, if we were to take a look at your church budget, how much have you given to feed the poor?
Guilty as charged.
Yeah.
Debt service
on
a bunch of bricks and mortar is way too big a part of our budget. Totally.
Right.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know at Hope our goal is to be a 50-50 church by the end of 14.
Yep. I was talking with Mike before. Well, let's see. It'd be Dr. Mike
Right.
before the show. And I planted a church out in West Des Moines, had a great experience. We planted that church, I think, in '89. We were there almost 6 years. And the last full year that we were there before I took the position at Teen Challenge, that church of 125, maybe 150 people on a good day, they'd paid for their building, and they were giving away over a third of their budget. It was going to local and worldwide ministries, and they loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, they just had a blast doing that.
Yeah.
And people who've never had the chance to experience that don't know how powerful it is.
Right.
When you can start, forget the debt service, forget all this other stuff we normally are tied into,
Right.
and start having fun giving money away. It's great times.
My guest today is pastor and director Warren Hunsberger. He's pastor of the Christian Life Assembly Church. He's also the regional director of Teen Challenge and on the board for the USA Teen Challenge. Also, Dr. Michael Hartwig in the house today, and we're being produced by, I guess, we have the rookie in the seat, Deacon Dennis and King David, along with producing today. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and if I haven't told you this lately, thanks for listening. I love this job, and I couldn't do it without you. Right here, locally, on 99.3 KTIA Iowa, and powered by webcast1live.com. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Fight the good fight on a Rebels Cause Radio, Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on a rebelscause.com. A Rebels Cause Radio is edutainment.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
The only way we come to know the Saviorship of Jesus Christ is by bowing and acknowledging that He is Lord and King over all the earth.
Jesus Christ died on a cross, paid the penalty for our sin, and by repenting of our sin and accepting Him by faith, what He did for us, we are forgiven.
Salvation is not a combination of faith and works. Salvation is by faith alone in God.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
We've got questions. You've got the answer. Join the conversation. It's your voice we want to hear. So call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
Good afternoon, 21 minutes past the hour. Warren Hunsberger is our guest today. He's a pastor. He's passionate about Teen Challenge so much that he sits on the United States of America board for Teen Challenge. We'll talk about Teen Challenge a little later. Dr. Mike Hartwig in the house. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and we're talking about what the changes that the church should make. And we were all glorious and wonderful following Scripture in the first section of this show, in which we said we should love God and then love our neighbor as ourselves. Okay? All right. Now, let's put it in 2013.
Yep.
Our neighbors want to have same-sex marriage as the way it is. They want to have speaking out against same-sex marriage as hate speech. Our neighbors want the right to kill an unborn child whenever they want. Our neighbors want entitlements that I'm going to work my behind off for so I can pay more taxes to the government so they can do less. My neighbors expect me, because I'm a Christian, to be better than they are because they've chosen not to be.
Yeah.
In that scenario, Pastor, the Christian church dies because they kill us off.
Well, they killed Jesus. The kind of love that we're talking about. We mentioned this in between while we were off the air. The kind of love that we're talking about, in Ephesians 5, he says, if you want to act like Jesus, if you want to be an imitator of Jesus, imitate him by living a life of love. Okay? And then it goes on to say, if you're a husband, live that life of love this way. As a wife, you live it this way. As a slave, as a master, as a parent, as a child. And you can't even begin to look at how each one of those groups of people lives that life of love without beginning with the fact, the base, that Jesus lived the life of love we're to imitate, and it cost him his life. It killed him. He gave completely. And that kind of love that we're talking about, I don't mean to make this into something flippant, because it's radical. It's world-changing love.
Yeah, but if my brother's homosexual, he's not, but let's say he's homosexual, he's saying that if I challenge him on that, I'm not very loving.
Yep. And we'll get accused of that right and left.
So
while we're
I think
attempting
it comes down to
live,
what does it mean to love?
Yeah.
You throw that around, love like Christ. We hear it all the time from pastors, but what does that mean?
Give. Start there, I think,
Give.
at least. Give.
All right,
completely.
Tell me.
Lay my life down. If I love my wife, gay,
Yes.
what does it mean for me to love her? It doesn't mean that because I love her, she has to do what I say. It doesn't mean that because I love her, I get to sleep with her every night, have sex with her anytime I demand, because that's the contractual relationship we've hammered out.
Right.
It means that I will put her needs before mine. It means that I'll lay my life down.
Sacrifice.
Yeah, I'll do for her what she needs because I love her.
Yeah, see, we get that term love is get thrown around like and we don't know what it means.
It's not emotional goo.
Right,
emotional goo didn't take Jesus to the cross.
All right.
Giving completely did.
Right.
Let me ask this question. We're really on the same topic, because it sounds like I'm going to change it. Tell me what you think of this term.
Yeah.
Tolerance is a man with no convictions.
I think the way that most people would use tolerance today, I'd probably agree with that statement. To love doesn't mean to tolerate evil. You know,
but
like you,
your
the
evil
example you used, where if you stood up and defended the rights of the unborn, that you'd be accused of being unloving.
Correct.
Okay. And so what I'm saying there is, I'm not going to judge whether or not love is driving you. That's between you and God. But I would make all kinds of room for someone who's so in love with God and so in love with his brothers and sisters on this planet that he has got to defend the rights of the unborn.
Because I talk with these people all the time.
Yeah.
I'm either blessed or cursed with as many friends who are non-believers as they are believers. So I can hear Laura Lundberg right now say to me, "You're a woman hater.
Yep.
You don't respect women's rights.
Yep.
You don't respect the fact that it's her body and she can do whatever she wants with it."
Here, this is kind of cute, kind of makes me cry at the same time. Pastoring a church back in the early 90s, most of our people in that church were young families. We had probably most Sundays over 50% of the people there were under the age of 12. Lots of young families. And unfortunately, in today's culture, that means lots of young families who don't have a clue as to how to parent. And I used to tell them, I'm the old guy because I'm in my 30s. And I would say, you got to learn how to say the word no. You have to train your children. One night, we got a missionary in from Japan sharing his heart about what's going on over in the mission field in Japan, how God's using them to meet the needs in their area of Japan. And I've got two young moms in the back of the church, and their kids are raising hell. Can you say that on radio?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. They're, just out of control. And I eventually have to stop the service and say, I'm so sorry, but we're going to have to ask you to leave, take your kids down to the nursery, off in one of the side rooms, just everybody's distracted. And then I stood up, I believe, as I recall, the very next Sunday morning and explained why I did what I did and that I would have to do it again. We've got to show respect for these people that are in speaking. I want children in these services. Any kid who can be in these services without being a distraction is totally welcome, blah, 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 blah. Family left the church because Warren's a woman hater and a child abuser. Mm-hmm. And so I believe I was motivated by love in how I was going at that and what I shared. But I'm going to get accused of being a horse's patootie no matter what.
All right. Then under that scenario, because I like that better than the church, as far as I'm concerned, in 2013 is doing a pretty darn good job of loving. I mean, we have a law on the book since 1973 that we can kill an unborn child.
Yeah.
We have laws crisscrossing the states right now that same-sex marriage is not only acceptable, but we have to tolerate it in every sense of the word. So if that's not loving our enemies, I don't know what is it.
Here's another way to look at that, I think, Mac. Could be that those laws exist. Those changes have taken place, are taking place in our culture and our society because we don't love enough. I don't love enough as a believer, so-called believer in Jesus Christ, to get off my butt and go share his love. Get off my sofa and go engage. And as I have refused to engage, laws like that have been enacted. Political candidates have run for office and been elected that are so far off the map. I mean, it's insane. And I think one of the reasons that's taken place is because the church doesn't love enough to be the church.
That I would agree with.
How did I do that? We're not.
Yeah.
We're just
29
halfway
minutes.
through
Yeah.
the.
That I agree with. I think the church needs to stand up and love through less tolerance of those things that we do not find biblically correct.
And here's how I think we can really be effective.
Okay.
When we get on that soapbox, I think people are going to listen to us if we haven't just let them know what we're against. If we have been proactive in saying this is who we are for. And the love that I have for Christ thrusts me, pushes me out the door, and I got to go feed the poor.
But most liberals are lunatics, liars, and thieves. They are. They want something for nothing, and they're going to lie, cheat, and steal to get it.
Here's I don't agree with that at all, Mac. I'd say it this way. I hate labels. I don't like being labeled.
Okay.
And I think we really get screwy when we label others because I'm old enough, I've been shocked by what I found after I peeled back the label.
Right.
And I've found liberals, people that I would have labeled or did label liberals, that I have a really unique appreciation for, and I found somebody under the conservative label that I can't stand to be around.
And I'm with you on that. And I've had people sit in your chair for 2 decades telling me they don't like labels. And here's my answer to that. Then stop acting like the mirror. I hold a mirror up to you and you act a certain way. We have a language, a very sophisticated language as humans, which says we can combine all these actions and say, lunatic. Liar. Thief.
So you're talking about labeling, or really aren't we getting down to where we're just saying we're judging? Is it a label or is it a judgment?
To me, it's a reflection upon your action. And you can't hold me accountable for holding up a mirror in front of your actions.
I like that one. Let's talk about that one. Wars have been fought over the gifts of the Spirit within the church.
Mm-hmm.
Are the gifts for today, or did they pass away back there somewhere with love and knowledge?
Right. You're Assembly God.
Yeah.
I'm a Baptist.
Right. And so we could fight.
Let's bring it on, baby.
We could fight over that.
I got the sword of the Spirit with it.
Let's
I guess
talk.
you do.
Okay, well, fruit of the Spirit.
And the Lutherans.
I love to talk about.
We're
fruit
just
of the
drinking
Spirit.
coffee, having
You're not drinking coffee, my friend. You're a Lutheran.
Fruit of the Spirit. Nobody argues about. Nobody fights about the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you look at what the fruit of the Spirit really is, it's the result, the fruit of the Spirit of God controlling my life. If the Spirit of God is in control in my life, others will be able to look at me and observe love, joy, peace. Okay, now, if I look at my own life and I don't see those qualities like there should be, or at least what I believe there should be in my life, then my Western mindset says, "Oh, I'm not loving enough. Oh, I gotta try really hard and be more loving, more peaceful, more joy." can't do it.
It's not the fruit of the
Because it'd
Spirit.
be the fruit of my effort,
Right.
if that was true.
Right.
When the Spirit of God is in control of my life, His fruit is evident. You ask me, how will I know
Right.
if somebody loves, if I love?
Yeah.
That fruit's going to be evident.
I mean, you know, for many years, I fought against same-sex. I was fighting against same-sex marriage when people didn't even know what it was. Okay,
I didn't want to know what it was.
Yeah.
Now I have to tell you, and I'm confessing here, I'm not about fighting for that anymore. There are so many more important things. Whether Bob and Brad, I just that's not what Jesus wants me to do. But look at what I've become. I've become so tolerant that something that is so pure. The marriage between a man and a woman, let no one put asunder except God. I'm willing to say, all right, I'll give that to society.
No.
That's your 21st century.
No, no. The way what I say is that if you were on the mission field, you went into a tribe and they didn't have any clothes on, what would you address?
I dressed them before I addressed them.
Exactly.
What?
I would address. It's a heart issue. It's a hard issue. You can go.
I wouldn't care if they had any clothes on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't really care if someone's homosexual.
Yeah.
What I care about is whether or not they love Jesus Christ.
Right. Yeah, because if they love Jesus Christ, they'll find their way
exactly
out of that sinful life.
Totally. I don't care what billfold card they've got in their pocket that says they're this denomination or none or Republican or Democrat.
Right.
It's that,
I
what are you
really
going to
don't care.
do with Jesus?
Right, exactly. And if there's one thing that some churches make a mistake on, it's that they focus on the clothes.
Right.
And they don't focus on the heart issue.
Right. All right. Dr. Michael Hartwig, Pastor Warren Hunsberger in the house. Kids, teens, what challenges do they have before us? Hunsberger knows his stuff. We'll talk about it next, live here on The View from a Pew on 99.3 KTIA Iowa, powered by webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
The dawn of a new era begins.
Well, hi, I'm Rob Spearman. I'm a broker-owner of RE/MAX Real Estate Concepts in Des Moines, Iowa. Give us a call if you're looking at buying or selling a home, or if you're having trouble on your mortgage payments or looking to purchase foreclosures. We have the agents to help you, experienced, outstanding agents. Our office number is 515-276-2872. Or if you'd like to look at homes, go to our website, homeconnectusa.com.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
We're the ones in the pew, not pulpit. Come on now, let's reason together. The phone lines are open, so call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
22 before the top, Salem Radio Network News, and then Michael Mudloff, Pastor Michael Mudloff from Westkirk Presbyterian Church, True Blue. That's here on 99.3 KTIA, the Truth Network. And this program, The View from a Pew, powered by WebcastOneLive.com. Dr. Michael Hartwig in the house, along with Pastor Warren Hunsberger, pastor of Christian Life Assembly, and also the regional the regional director for Teen Challenge and on the USA board. I had a really cool opportunity yesterday to have lunch with a good Christian man by the name of Gary Rosberg and about another 14 guys. And Rosberg sat in the room and challenged us. Who do we have on our shoulders? What young man are we bringing down the pike and pouring ourselves into them and really not so much holding them accountable, but making sure they know we're there? And so many of us in that room in our 50s and 60s just shook our head. Said, we never had anybody at the age of 20, 25. Maybe somebody was lucky enough to have a dad. Maybe somebody was lucky enough to have a pastor. But for the most part, we just all kind of looked at each other. Yeah. Without a doubt, if we want to change our culture, we have to change the youth. I mean, one of the reasons why I humbly believe, and I'm no doctor, but if I had to do a thesis on why America is where it's at is in 2013, I would tell you it comes down to one thing: divorced parents. Mom's forced back into work. Kids are latchkey kids. They don't come running home to mom's skirt and making dinner. And the family unit has now been stressed out massively by either not being a family unit or trying to be the Joneses and keeping up with the Smiths. And they don't have, I mean, I don't know how many people I've met who can't afford, they're on welfare, they're on food stamps, but by golly, they got 3 cable boxes, 3 cell phones, and they all smoke Marlboros.
Yeah.
Now, that's somewhere along the line, some child had the wrong idea about entitlements and what's right and wrong, and they grew up to be an adult.
Yep.
You live in the middle of that with Teen Challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's kind of a unique perspective because the name really sets you up wrong. Teen Challenge started in 1958 on the streets of Brooklyn. David Wilkerson started reaching out to teenage gang members on the streets of Brooklyn. As they responded to the gospel, he found that most of them were heroin addicts.
Wow.
And so you can't do that. You can't bring a kid into the church who's a heroin addict and see him for a couple hours on Sunday morning and a couple hours at a midweek and make it work. It's just not going to fly. You need to provide an environment where that young person can be discipled 24/7, and that's where Teen Challenge came from.
I don't know if you know a man by the name of Matt Baird. Probably neither one of you know him. He has a band called Spoken, and in our show Restoring Hope, he's the one that sings our title. Right. His story is awesome, and I won't go through the whole thing, but basically unchurched, from a family that obviously is unchurched. Yeah. Lives across the street from a church in Mississippi. So as a kid, he would go ride his skateboard Monday through Sunday. And on Sunday, the church was small enough and the walls were thin enough that they could hear the skateboard on the inside. So one day while he's skating up and down the ramp and the railings and all this while church is going on, one of the elders came out. Now, that elder had 2 choices. First one was, you rotten little stinking kid, get your butt off my church. Mm-hmm. Or, hey, young man, how you doing? I used to ride skateboard. Let me show you how to do that. Wow, you want to come into church with us? We're getting ready to have some cookies and punch. And Matt tells me that first experience in that church that day, he had never felt love. People were saying hi to him. How you doing?
Pretty
nice
radical.
to have you here.
Radical.
Right.
That's right.
They didn't concentrate on the clothes like you were saying.
Right.
Yeah, right.
You know, yeah.
They didn't, because back then, I don't know about you, but I didn't think much of skateboarders.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't want my kid to be a skateboarder.
Yeah.
It's okay nowadays, but back then they were kind of punks, hoods, hoodlums.
Yeah.
But that church embraced that young man, and now he's a international star in Jesus' eyes because he goes out and sings songs for Jesus.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Great stuff. If you ask our young guys on staff at Teen Challenge, some of whom have come through the program, if you ask them, what was the deal? Didn't you have DARE class when you were a kid? They'd all look at you.
I think I'm too old.
They would
for
look
DARE.
at you and they'd say, "You betcha, I had that class.
Yeah.
Knew all the facts and did it anyway because they're running on empty. They weren't loved. They didn't know love."
Warren, let me ask you, why are you doing this in Teen Challenge?
Simple answer. Honestly, and I don't mean to make this trite. God called me.
Okay.
I knew it.
So how did you
wrote it on the wall?
When was your first engagement with Teen Challenge?
My first engagement with Teen Challenge, and this is kind of unique. I think it's kind of cool. It was a few years after God called me to Teen Challenge, because when he called me to Teen Challenge, I knew what he called me to, what it looked like, what the flavor would be, but I'd never heard of Teen Challenge as an organization. A few years later, I was a pastor in West Des Moines, got asked to serve on the board of the local Teen Challenge ministry.
Out in Colfax.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's my first engagement.
And then next thing you know, you're booting
next
the
thing
old
I know,
director
Roger
out.
Helly says, "Hey, I'm leaving. I'm going to take a position with Teen Challenge in Chattanooga, Tennessee."
Oh.
And God gets me by the nose ring.
So when you say call, what does that mean? And you
I
say it was written on the roll.
could not do anything else.
You're so
it was so clear. For my wife and I, where it began was one morning I was across town at the office early before place opened up. No one else was around.
In a secular job.
Yes. Okay. Yep. And I'm reading the Bible in my office.
Getting ready you're not supposed to do that.
Well, yeah, I know. I did it.
Yeah, you Christians are always breaking the rules.
I called. I read something that spoke to me so strongly. I called my wife at home later that morning and said, "Hey, I just got to share this with you." Began to share it with her. And she says, "What scripture were you reading?" I told her. She says, "I was there this morning in the Chase Lounge in the front yard while I was sunbathing." And she says, "God spoke the same thing to me from that scripture." We got together that night, sat down, started talking, and we drew. It was so clear. It was like a laser photograph, this call, these priorities he was bringing to our heart. We drew a picture of a place with a winding lane and huge oak trees on both sides. Uh-huh. And down at the end of this lane, there was a building where people who'd been tossed off in the ditch could get help and get pulled back up onto the highway of life.
Oh, wow.
And put that in our journal. We've still got it. And that was in 1984. I didn't get called to Teen Challenge until 1994 as executive director. What was cool was...
you got called to serve on the board, though.
2 years before that, I think.
So did you feel any of the wow factor
I didn't
at that
put
point?
I didn't put the dots together because it was something I was doing to help out a friend, Roger Helly.
Oh, yeah.
And what was neat was in '84 when we drew that picture, we'd never heard of Teen Challenge, didn't know that place existed. They did not own the physical location in Colfax that picture was a drawing of. They didn't own it yet. They didn't purchase it till late '86, moved in early '87.
Oh, wow.
And when I started serving on the board, I didn't put it together. When I drove down that lane at the center in Colfax the first day as executive director, that's when it just began to totally scream at me. This is it. This is what I was speaking to your heart those years ago.
Biggest problem among our teen today is what?
What we've been talking about, that running on empty, lack of love. Mm-hmm. That skateboarder. Doesn't make any difference what the wrapping is in somebody's life. As I was sharing earlier, all of our young guys on staff that came from that background would say, "I didn't know love. I didn't."
Right. I'd like to hear what you do with somebody that's alcoholic.
Okay, and we got to wait because we're going to come up for a break. But the other question and I'm not going to make it a question, I'll just make it a statement. My guess is that stuffy old men like me would not say lack of love. We'd say lack of respect. And we'd be looking at it through the deceiver's eyes rather than Jesus' eyes to see what's wrong rather than what's right.
Yeah, different ways we describe it, but I'm going to say the problem is the lack of love.
Yeah, and an old guy like me would probably say you disrespectful little punks.
Yeah.
You need a little backside whipping.
Yeah.
All right. Pastor Warren Hunsberger, my guest, Dr. Michael Hartwig in the house. I'm J. Michael McCoy. We're coming back live here on The View from Pew on 99.3 KTIA, powered by webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
We've got questions. You've got the answer. Join the conversation. It's your voice we want to hear. So call 855-244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
10 before the top, Salem Radio Network News, then Pastor Michael Mudloff, True Blue, here on 99.3 KTIA. Pastor Warren Hunsberger, my guest today, along with Dr. Michael Hartwig. You were just about to ask him a question.
Yeah, one of the things, let's say my son is alcoholic and he's starting to realize he needs help. We call Teen Challenge. What happens?
Yeah. Lots of things happen to get you in the door.
Sure.
Our people walk folks through every step, but what we're going to tell you during that admissions process and what's going to happen after you arrive on our campus as a student is we're going to do our best with the help of the Holy Spirit to disciple you.
Okay,
we're
so
not a Christianized treatment center. We don't treat addiction. We try to disciple someone for Christ.
Okay, so obviously no alcohol on site, no drugs. It's a lockdown
Very structured.
facility.
Yeah. It's not a lockdown.
They
You
can
got to
leave
want to be
anytime.
there. Yeah, all they got to do is walk up and say, "Hey, I'm on out. I'm done."
Really?
Yep.
So they got to want to be there.
Yep.
And you don't take
because
any
you
court order.
can't disciple somebody who doesn't want to be discipled. We do take those that are court ordered. They may be court ordered there. Court gives them the option of coming to Teen Challenge. One thing you'd have to know is, as Teen Challenge, we are not court ordered to receive you. We
Right.
don't have to take you. And while you're meeting with us during that admissions process, we want to see, do you really want to be here? You're just trying to skate on some time.
That doesn't happen, does it?
Oh, never, never, never.
Okay, so then obviously there's a fee, right?
Up front, $750 admissions fee, and from that point forward, we're supported by people who care.
Okay, so
Organizations, businesses, churches, individuals.
wow. So obviously there's some. You probably got to figure out how much per day it's going to cost.
Yeah, we lay out conservatively. It's going to, at the very least, going to be around $1,500 a month for us to house you.
But that's not that shouldn't prevent somebody from calling you and saying,
"Oh no, no, if your family, if you can help contribute towards that cost, great. We're gonna tell you up front. We'd like you to do that,
right?
But we're not going to close the door if you don't have that.
And
money.
you don't have to be a teenager either.
No, our centers right now are prohibited by law from taking someone under 18. You got to be 18 and up.
But
Here.
why Teen Challenge?
Because that's where we started, and people don't change their names. We were just donated the former Nebraska State Boys Ranch in the panhandle of western Nebraska, about a quarter of an inch from Wyoming.
Yeah.
And we're going to develop that into a boys ranch, adolescent boys ranch, 12 years to 17.
Wow.
To put the teen back in.
Right. So
we really need that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we have got to grab these young pubescent boys and just get their mommy skirt out of them, and this entitlement that they've grown up with, and this, I can go isolate myself and I can talk to my friends on Twitter or text them. I don't need to have a relationship.
Yeah. I just had lunch yesterday with a great young guy, probably in his 30s, and we were talking a little bit about this, and I said, it's just a crime to me to look at the so many young males today raised up with the notion that, number one, they got to apologize for having testicles. They've got to apologize for being male. And even in the church, if you really want to be spiritual, you have to act like a woman.
Yeah, right.
Because guys aren't spiritual.
Yeah, we're the men.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And if we could train up young men to understand that God has wired them, God's called them to carry weight, to bear responsibility on behalf of their families, behalf of the others in the church, on behalf of the world, their culture. It's just so backwards.
Yeah, when the accuser got a hold of the feminist movement, because I'm all for equal.
Yep.
I'm just not an old school Old Testament guy. Well, and the truth of the matter is I'm married way above myself. Yeah. But my wife and I are equal. We're equally yoked. But when that feminism movement came in and Satan got a hold of that, it just destroyed the family, which destroyed generations.
So my wife and I are equals. No, we have women too, adult women. We have a women's center in Pella.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I didn't realize. But the one in Colfax is just...
That's adult men, yeah.
Okay.
They start at Colfax about 7 months in what we call induction and training phase. Then they move to our reentry center in Metro Omaha.
Oh, okay. So
you know what we ought to do? We ought to go out there and visit that sometime.
Love to have you.
I'd love to go out there and meet some of those young men. We'd hear some incredible stories.
So they get in a work program while they're on the place?
Yeah. At Colfax, in induction and training phase, very structured environment.
Structure meaning you go to sleep here.
You wake up at this time. You do these things. You move through the day structured.
Oh man,
because
that's drive some of those nuts.
Oh yeah. There's no self-discipline in the life of an addict.
Yeah.
I mean, so we have to bring the structure to them initially.
Right.
But as you move through the program, we're asking you to set more and more of that on your own. When you get to reentry in Omaha, you don't attend church with us as a group. You choose to plug into a local church on your own. You hold a full-time job away from the center. You begin to live out what we gave you in Colfax.
So would you assign me a person to kind of, they're in the induction phase, or would it?
You're going to be assigned somebody that you can go to as a mentor. But a lot of our discipleship takes place even student to student. If I've got to drive into Des Moines and pick up a part for one of our vans, I may grab you, have you come along, and we'll do windshield time. And just talking. I mean, it's again, it's one of those phrases that gets overused, but doing life together is a huge part of the rabbinical model of discipleship.
I had an old boat one time, and I think I donated it.
Don't call your wife an old boat.
No, she's much. Anyway, didn't I? I think I donated to you guys one time. I know I donated a car. Now, how'd that work?
We've got a vehicle donation program that been in operation now 7 years, I believe, something like that.
Right.
Takes junk vehicles.
Right.
In the case of an automobile, most of them are non-runners.
Right.
And turns them into cash, and it's just been phenomenal. It's been huge for us in providing revenue for the ministry. But it also has been great as far as we have to invest a lot of money in advertising, and the recognition that we've gained as a ministry because of those stupid junk cars has been insane. Yeah. And we get the junk cars out of the backyard, and all the wives get happy, and the guys get out of the doghouse.
Hey, Warren, I want to just say thank you.
You got 60 seconds.
I just want to say thank you. Bible talks about how if we want God's ear, we need to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and give comfort to the comfortless, or shelter to the shelterless. You guys are doing it. My hat's off to you, and God bless you in your ministry.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm doing it because God called me, like we talked, and I'm doing it because I had a grandfather who'd lost everything to alcoholism, who prayed me into God's kingdom alongside my wife, who found Jesus in a psych ward and began to pray for me.
That's cool. Thanks, man.
Now I want to hear the whole story. We're out of time because Mudloff has to get up here and preach his Presbyterian. I mean, we are so lucky to have Pastor Michael Mudloff coming up from Westkirk Presbyterian Church with True Blue and Chris Roloff at the end. We're glad to have you. Tomorrow, Tom Coates in the house with Brad Zahn. Great guests all week long. Dr. Michael, thanks for being here. Warren, thanks for being here. Guys in the production booth, thanks for being here. One more thing before you go, before you lay your head down on the pillow tonight, before you shut off the TV, before you drink that last glass of warm milk, do a favor for God tonight, would you? Please pray.